My name is Raymond. I'm the head of equity research for Relegate Capital Markets. I've been in the London capital markets now for about 15 years, and about 6 of those specifically relate to the AIM market, which possibly explains the receding hairline that I now have. But as Nikhil said, I'd like to talk a little bit more about how what AIM does for you and what you have to do for AIM. There's a little bit of repetition going on here, but I think we want to drum in a couple of key points really on AIM and what it's about. Very similar slide here to what Richard showed a few minutes ago, but I think the things that I just want to pull out of this really, the key conclusion really is that AIM is a market for dynamic companies. The market itself is continually in transition, and you can see that really from the numbers of companies that are listed on the bourse. There's currently about 1,150 companies listed, but there was a peak of 1,700 listed in 2008, and there have been a total number of admissions through the history of AIM of 3,250. So you can see that the market, just by the number of companies, is continually in a state of transition. And what is happening is companies that are raising money, they're doing well, they're graduating to the LSE, or they're doing well and being taken over by other corporates, or in some cases they're not doing so well, they're delisting or whatever, or being taken over. The number we were trying to get at really to investing international companies, about 450 now, so that's about 40% of total companies on AIM are actually international. So what this should give you some comfort is that the investors that look at AIM are very, very familiar with dealing with companies outside the UK, so that's really not a problem at all. And I think the other point which Nikhil has brought out, and to some extent Richard as well, is that AIM is a fantastic market for follow-on fundraising. And I think if you're a growth company, that's an extremely important point. So in summary, really on this slide, AIM is essentially a market for growth companies that need to raise money now and that need to raise money in the future. A little bit of a wordy slide here, really, but I'd just like to run through a couple of key benefits of being quoted on AIM. And I think there are 4 key things that I'll bring out of this slide. First of all, as both previous speakers have mentioned, deep pools of capital in London. You're talking over these days over $1 trillion for equity assets, which makes it the deepest pool of capital in the world. Second point, which Nikhil spent a little bit of time talking on just there, is the very high quality investors. They really are the creme de la creme of investors globally, and they all invest not only on the main market but also on AIM as well. So you get fantastic access to these people. The third key point, I think, being listed on AIM is the continuous access to capital, and that enables you to do something what we call staggered dilution. It means that when you do your IPO, you don't have to come and raise all your money in one go at a relatively low price when people don't know your business and your business is an early stage of development. What it means you can do is come and raise a small amount of money, prove your ability to execute on the business plan, expect the shares to follow that execution, and then raise some more money at a higher price, enabling you as promoters to suffer sort of less dilution in your ownership of the business. And I think the final point as well, which is, we haven't really talked about a lot yet, is the very sensible regulatory burden on AIM. In many ways, Mr. Sarbanes and Mr. Oxley have done us a huge favour in London. They've probably put in inappropriate levels of regulatory burden. And I think for many companies now it's too difficult, too expensive, too much hassle, frankly. And I think London, to some extent, has come under a bit of criticism for having what's known as regulatory light touch. But I think now we've gone through the crisis and out the other side, I think a lot of people can see that actually makes a lot of sense, both for investors and for the companies who want to come and raise capital. Everyone understands the risks they're taking, they're happy to take them, and they're happy that the Nomad is standing up for them to make sure that the companies are doing what they're supposed to do. So I think basically AIM generated a very good environment for companies to raise capital from all over the world. And many companies find this more attractive than private equity funding. I think this is another important point. A lot of companies we talk to in India, they want their pound of flesh in terms of valuation, seats on the board, etc. And I think what you'll find is that the AIM market is substantially more friendly from that perspective. I think that's something you need to think about quite carefully if you're looking at the private equity route. I don't want to go over this slide over and over again. I mean, I think we're making it very clear that the world's premier investors invest on AIM. You should be absolutely clear about that. But I think more specific to you dealing and talking